The CEO of I Am Champ Group, Abiola Salami, joins me now on the program to discuss Nigeria at 56. Thank you for joining us, Abiola.
Thank you for having me.
Do we have any reason to celebrate Nigeria at 56?
Well, you know, as a very religious nation and very religious people we are Nigerians, we always say that where there is hope, there is life. When there is hope, there is life. So that will form the basis of our celebration this time. And really, truthfully, where there is hope, there is life. But also, we should start to think beyond the hope that we have, that we've always had, and maximize that hope into creating something fruitful and something sustainable for our nation and for our children and our children's children.
Well, looking at where we stand now as a nation, do you think we've learned any lessons from the past?
You know, there's a famous quote by an American that says that what we've learned from history is that we've learned nothing from history. If we look at our political process, the governance system, the conversation about corruption, the economy, especially the recession that we are in now, we have proofs that we've really not learned anything from our history. From the time we got independence, gained independence in 1960, 1st of October 1960, we've had recurrent issues and same pattern of problems that we thought that by now we would have probably learned from our history and reposition our country to be in the first in the League of Nations.
Well, from what you just said now, many believe that 56 years is more than enough for any nation like Nigeria to realize its potentials. Now, do you agree with that?
Yes. I mean, and think about it. As at independence 56 years ago, Nigeria's potential was quite high across the globe. And there were countries like Malaysia, like Nigeria, you know, that were mentioned as countries that would be like the fighting tigers, like we had Asian tigers anyway, you know, like African tigers or like global tigers even as it were. But when we compare the achievement of Nigeria in 56 years with the achievement of other peers, other countries that probably gained independence 3 years before, 2 years before, and I'm sad to say Ghana, for example, you know, there's some form of development that is more than what Nigeria should have achieved with our potential, our capacity, our human capacity potential, our natural resources potential as well. We're not maximizing our resources the way we should. At 56 years, we should have stable power supply. At 56 years, our governance structure should be stable. At 56 years, our educational structure should be one of the best in the world. At 56 years, we should not have our human resources leaving the shores of our nation to seek better life somewhere else. I mean, we have some of the best doctors here in the U.S. at the moment. When we talk about academic performance, we have some of the best Nigerians top most of the schools here in Nigeria. But back home, because there are no structures in place to galvanize and help the potential of these Nigerians to skyrocket them to the place they're supposed to be among the nations of the world, people are moving here and there because Nigeria is not what it's supposed to be at 56 years.
Well, Abiola, you just mentioned some of the things that we desire. We desire better education, better healthcare, better management of our resources. But even as citizens, what should we be doing right now to ensure that Nigeria becomes greater?
I mean, we are doing that already, because you realize that an average citizen is the leader of his own community, and that community is his family. So the person provides electricity supply for himself that the government is supposed to provide. The person provides water supply for himself that the government is supposed to provide, and several other amenities. But in the midst of all of this, this is what I strongly believe. I believe that while the government has its own role to play, that every one of us as individual citizens, we have our roles to play. Number one is this. Every one of us in this recession especially, people should concentrate more on developing their skills, on adding value to themselves, because the more valuable you are, the more value you attract. That is number one. Number two is for us to realize that no matter how fantastic the government could even be, the government cannot resolve the problem of Nigeria alone. That ourselves as individuals, we have things to do. And it starts with things like obeying traffic rules, things like ensuring proper sanitation within your environment, things like honoring the Saturday that's supposed to be environmental sanitation, things like ensuring that the next person is doing the right thing. I believe that it is the responsibility of every Nigerian, every patriotic Nigerian, to do the right thing, no matter who is doing the wrong thing, in terms of corruption, in terms of putting systems in place, because Nigeria is our own. It is not just for the government, it's for every one of us as citizens. So at 56 years, Nigerians should take responsibility for nation building and not just leave it to the government.
Well, we just talked about roles as citizens, but what about the private sector? How do you think the government can get the private sector more involved in nation building?
Well, I think the private sector is very much involved in nation building because there are a couple of projects that are public-private sector partnerships. But what I would say for private sector is, while profit is the goal of any business, what I would say is that we should also think about the sustainability of our nation. This is to private sector. We should also think about the sustainability of our nation, not putting profit in front always, but thinking in long term, what kind of nation are we leaving for our children, our children's children? The government is really engaging the private sector, but there could be more engagement. But the fabric of that engagement should rest not just on profitability, but on sustainability. Not on profitability, but on sustainability.
Well, Abiola, I'm sure that in spite of all these challenges, there are things that you see that make you beam with pride. I mean, things that make you being proud, being a proud Nigerian. Would you like to tell us some of those things that make you a proud Nigerian?
Okay, number one on the list is, for every 5 Africans that you see, one of them is a Nigerian. That's the power of strength and population. Number 2 is that the fighting spirit of a Nigerian. When you see Nigerians anywhere within the country, outside the country, Nigerians are fighters. Not because they bring up their gloves and they start to punch anyone, but Nigerians are go-getters. Anywhere you find a Nigerian. In fact, if there's any country at the moment that there is no Nigerian contributing to the productivity of that country, then you should know that country is not in the League of Nations, as it were. So the fighting spirit of Nigerians, the human capacity of Nigerians, you know, the tenacity of Nigerians as well. We've had serious cases in Nigeria that when you compare our tenacity and the way we've held ourselves together with other countries let loose. We've had issues that would have led us to serious wars, but somehow the spirit of Nigerian comes back, that peaceful spirit, that spirit of bouncing back, the tenacity, the spirit to bounce back, and
okay,
of course,
Abiola.
the capacity of
Abiola, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on Network Africa.